AEW Dynamite, New Year's Smash results, December 29, 2021. This week's show kicks off with the traditional cold open video package, and then we shoot inside Daly's Place Amphitheater in Jacksonville, Florida, where fireworks and pyro explodes as Excalibur and Tony Schiavone welcome us to the show. Jim Ross returns to commentary from there. The commentary duo welcome back their third broadcast partner, returning from his hiatus due to skin cancer treatments, good old Jade. Jim Ross. The infamous Boomer Sooner theme hits, and out comes the legendary voice of wrestling. JR does his "It's Wednesday night, and you know what that means" catchphrase and takes his seat. 10-man tag team match: Jurassic Express, Christian Cage and the Lucha Brothers vs. Private Party, Matt Hardy and FTR. After that, the familiar sounds of the entrance theme music of Jurassic Express plays, and out comes Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. The crowd sings along with their catchy tune as they settle into the ring. Christian Cage's music hits, and out comes Captain Charisma to join the aforementioned duo in the ring. His music dies down, and the final two members of the 5-man babyface team, the Lucha Brothers, make their way out. The AEW Tag Team Champions settle in the ring and their music dies down. With all 5 babyfaces in the ring and ready to rock, the theme for FTR hits, and out comes the AAA Tag Team Champions Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, accompanied by Tully Blanchard. They are joined by the rest of their team, which also consists of Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn, as well as Matt Hardy. They are also joined by others from Matt Hardy's stable, who remain at ringside with them during the match. The bell sounds and we're off and running with our opening contest of the evening. Christian Cage and Cash Wheeler kick things off for their respective teams. The two lock up but end up in a stalemate. They play to the crowd a bit and then they re-engage, with Christian getting the better of things. He gets Wheeler in the corner and climbs up for the 10-punch spot as the fans count along with each strike. Now Christian heads over and tags in Jungle Boy. In comes the Jurassic Express member to pick up where Cage left off, until Wheeler backs up and makes the tag to his FTR partner. In comes Dax Harwood, who locks up and pushes Jungle Boy into the corner of the ring. He blasts him with a big chop, and then Jungle Boy reverses him and slaps him with a big chop of his own. They do this back and forth a couple of times, and then the speed and pace picks up, which ends up favoring Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy knocks Harwood down with a couple of back elbows, and when the FTR member gets up, he's in the wrong neck of the woods, as he walks into punches from Jungle Boy's teammates on the ring apron. Cage then tags back in and he picks up where Jungle Boy left off, taking it to Harwood. He hops over the top and drops to the floor outside of the ring for a big punch. JR notes that it was done in honor of the late NFL great John Madden, who passed away today. We see Jungle Boy tag in and work over the arm of Isaiah Cassidy, who tagged in for his team as well. Ray Phoenix tags in and he and Jungle Boy hit a double team spot before he settles in the ring and works over Cassidy some more. He tags Jungle Boy back in, but Jungle Boy ends up getting taken out by a double team move by the heels. Matt Hardy tags in and works him over a bit before tagging Wheeler in to pick up where he left off. As the ref deals with Wheeler, we see some of the heels on the ring apron, and even Tully on the floor, sneak in some cheap shots. Wheeler hits a catapult on Jungle Boy in the corner and then tags Hardy back in. Hardy puts a sleeper hold / rear choke on Jungle Boy and squeezes as the Jurassic Express member fades down to one knee. The fans rally behind Jungle Boy and he escapes and blasts Hardy with a lariat. Both guys make the tag, with Penta El Zero Miedo coming in for his team. One half of Private Party tags in for his team, and this leads to all of the heels ending up in the ring, only to take shots from the babyfaces. This lights the crowd on fire, and then Phoenix tags back in as the legal man in the ring with Quinn. Phoenix puts Quinn on the top rope and hoists him up for a muscle buster, however Cassidy interferes and helps Quinn stick Phoenix with a flip over cutter. Harwood tags in after that and he goes to work on Phoenix. Phoenix is on the defensive for a few moments but then hits a big splash to buy himself enough time to make the tag. In comes Luchasaurus for his team, and the big man of Jurassic Express goes on an offensive run that sees him taking out 2 and 3 members of the opposing team at the same time. He gets both FTR members in one corner and the Private Party members in the other 2 corners before running and splashing onto all of them one after the other. He goes to follow that up with a double chokeslam on FTR, but they fight their way free before he lifts them up. Before FTR can do anything after that, Luchasaurus takes Wheeler out of the ring the hard way and then executes a big chokeslam on Harwood in the ring. He tags in Penta and we see the Lucha Bro hit a backstabber on Harwood for a near fall. Private Party breaks up the pin attempt, which leads to everyone hitting the ring at the same time. Some of the guys filter out to the floor and fight at ringside while others duke it out in the ring. We see Phoenix and Jungle Boy hit some crazy running dives onto the heels on the floor. Back in the ring, Penta works over Harwood and reaches back for a blind tag to who he thought was Phoenix, but instead it was Cage. Cage and Penta argue, and while doing so, FTR capitalizes on this by hitting a sneak attack from behind, leading to the pinfall victory for their team. After the opener, we head to a commercial break. Winners: Private Party, Matt Hardy and FTR. AEW Trios Match: Daniel Garcia and Team 2.0 vs Eddie Kingston, Santana and Ortiz. When we return from the break, we see the trio of Danny Garcia and Team 2.0, Matt Lee and Jeff Parker, already standing in the ring and ready for action in our second match of the evening. As we settle back into the show, we hear the familiar sounds of the entrance theme of Eddie Kingston. The Med King sprints down to the ring along with his partners for this one, Santana and Ortiz of the Inner Circle. The heel trio exits the ring to retreat as the babyface trio settles inside the squared circle. Kingston's music fades down and then the bell sounds to get this one off and running. Kingston kicks things off for his team, duking it out with Garcia in the early goings. Kingston knocks Garcia out of the ring and follows him out to add more punishment. Instead, he gets blindsided by Team 2.0 on the floor and the trio establishes the offensive lead before sending Kingston back into the ring. Once back in the ring, however, Kingston fights back into the offensive lead and then tags in Ortiz. Ortiz slaps a side headlock on Parker, who tagged in for his team moments ago. Ortiz hits a nice arm drag on him but gets reversed by Parker. Parker blasts Ortiz with a boot to the gut and then whips him into the ropes. Ortiz fights back in control and tags in Santana. Santana and Ortiz hit a double team sequence on Parker before sending him out to the floor. The fans pop as Santana waves on Garcia. Garcia enters the ring and the two circle each other. Garcia catches Santana with a boot to the stomach. As the action continues, we see Santana make the tag to Ortiz, who comes in and works over Garcia. Garcia makes the blind tag, which Ortiz doesn't see, leading to Garcia and Team 2.0 taking over on offense. The action spills out to the floor and once out there, Ortiz finds himself on the wrong end of a 2-on-1 beatdown. Back in the ring, Matt Lee picks up where they left off, taking it to Ortiz before tagging Parker back in. He and Lee hit a double team spot as Excalibur talks us into a mid-match, picture-in-picture commercial break as the action continues. When we return from the break, we see Garcia working over Ortiz. Ortiz rolls him up for a near-fall attempt. Garcia kicks out, however he stands up and eats a shotgun dropkick from Ortiz. Ortiz then makes the tag to Kingston. The Med King enters the ring and chops the hell out of Garcia in the corner. He hits a big release suplex on one half of Parker and then goes to work on Lee. He tags in Santana, who picks up where Kingston left off, taking it to Lee in the ring. He goes for a standing moonsault on him, but lands on the knees. Lee then rolls him up and holds the trunk to steal the win by pinfall. The commentators point out that this is the second time in recent memory that the trio stole a win. Winners: Daniel Garcia and Team 2.0. After the match, Chris Jericho returns, makes the save after the match. The heel trio continues beating down Santana. They work him over and then Garcia grabs the ring bell and brings it into the ring. As Lee and Parker hold Santana, Garcia runs over and lays him out with a big shot from the ring bell. From there, we hear the familiar sounds of Chris Jericho's theme song and out comes LE Champion, as he sprints to the ring with Floyd the baseball bat. He clears the ring of the heel trio as the commentators remind us that Jericho hasn't been seen on AEW programming since being laid out in a backstage attack by Garcia and Team 2.0. Eddie Kingston gets in Chris Jericho's face as Santana remains laid out. We see Kingston checking on him along with ringside officials. Jericho, meanwhile, is standing guard with Floyd the Bat to make sure Garcia and Team 2.0 don't try any other sneak attacks. We see Kingston get angry, demanding the music be cut off. He gets in Jericho's face and asks what he's doing. Ortiz ends up trying to calm the situation down as we fade out and transition to a backstage segment. MJF points out clause in Wardlow's contract. MJF is shown behind the scenes along with Shawn Spears and Wardlow. MJF talks his usual trash while Spears smiles and nods by his side while holding a chair. On the other side is Wardlow, who looks completely disinterested and actually annoyed in general. After MJF finishes his verbal assault on CM Punk, we see him turn his attention to Wardlow. He brings up a clause in his contract, which a lawyer is brought in to read, that guarantees anything Wardlow has or earns belongs to MJF. MJF then says he's gonna start ascending the rankings himself soon before closing with his usual, "I'm better than you, and you know it," catchphrase. After this, we head to another commercial break. Christian confronts the Lucha Brothers, title match set for next week. As we settle back in from the break, we see Tony Schiavone standing backstage with the Lucha Brothers when he brings up miscommunication leading to their 5-man team losing tonight's opener. Up walks Christian Cage with Jurassic Express. He blames the Lucha Brothers on costing them the match earlier this evening. Alex Abrahants speaks on behalf of the Lucha Brothers after Cage wraps up. Cage challenged the Lucha Brothers to face Jurassic Express in an AEW Tag Team title match on next week's show. The match is set and accepted after Abrahants tells Cage, via the Lucha Brothers, that he is supposed to be a legend but he can't get out of his friend's way. Wardlow vs. Colin Delaney. We shoot back inside the building where we see Wardlow settling into the ring for our next bout of the evening. Already in the ring is his opponent for this match, Colin Delaney. The bell sounds and we're off and running. We see Wardlow immediately nearly take Delaney's head off with a big shot. He then hoists him up for a big power bomb. He follows that up with multiple additional power bombs, making a total of 4 in a row before putting his foot on Delaney and scoring the easy squash match/showcase victory. After the match, Spears does his usual routine and blasts Delaney with a cheap shot with the chair. Winner, Wardlow. Kyle O'Reilly tells Adam Cole he'll find out if he has his back tonight. After the Wardlow/Delaney match, we shoot backstage to a promised message from Kyle O'Reilly. We see O'Reilly standing backstage along with Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, and the Young Bucks. Cole and the Bucks talk first after checking with Brandon Cutler to make sure his camera is on. They talk briefly and then they mention O'Reilly's name. This leads to some uneasy talk between the Bucks and O'Reilly. Cole tells the Bucks he's got this and to let them talk. He tells Fish the same. This leaves Cole and O'Reilly brings up how he knows things aren't great between the two of them. He then says he'll find out later tonight if Cole truly has his back or not. He walks off and Cole demands Brandon Cutler cut the camera feed off. Dan Lambert trashes Cody Rhodes. Brandy Rhodes confronts him. We shoot back to the ring where Dan Lambert is standing and joined by the Men of the Year duo of All Ego, Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. Lambert goes on to rant about Cody Rhodes, taking a bunch of cheap shots at him until finally Brandy Rhodes comes out on a microphone to respond. She takes them to task for their comments and calls them on stuff as she heads down to the ring. Lambert says he prefers Jim Cornette and then makes fun of Brandy for having an irritating voice. This leads to Brandy asking Lambert when the last time was he got beat up by a woman and didn't pay for it. She says she'll kick his ass tonight for free. Lambert goes on to point out that he has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He says he'll slap her in the mouth right now, after he calls her Bambi and points out that he gets his stripper names confused sometimes. Brandy brings up him bragging about being a black belt, before pointing out that she is a black bitch. She takes her shoes off and looks ready to fight, but instead Dustin Rhodes comes out. We see Dustin try and keep order and play peacemaker, however he ends up victim of a cheap shot from behind by the Men of the Year. They then exit the ring with Lambert and head to the back as Brandy checks on Dustin. After this, we head to another commercial. A look at Hangman Adam Page vs. Bryan Danielson 2 on TBS debut. When we return from the break, we shoot immediately to a vignette that looks back at the initial meeting between Hangman Adam Page and Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship. Clips of the match are shown while various AEW talent and personalities are featured as talking heads giving some insight and analysis into the first bout, which ended as a 60-minute time limit draw. After this, the attention turns to focus on the upcoming rematch for the title on next week's show, which is the debut edition of AEW Dynamite on TBS. TBS Women's Championship Tournament, Semifinals, Jade Cargill vs. Thunder Rosa. From there, we return live inside the arena where the theme for Jade Cargill hits. She makes her way out and heads down to the ring accompanied by her manager/agent. She settles into the ring and her music fades down. The theme for her opponent, Thunder Rosa, hits. Rosa makes her way out in a unique blue and yellow ring attire with Wolverine-like claws in her hand. Rosa sets the claws down and poses for the fans before settling in the ring. The bell sounds and we're off and running with our last semi-final bout in the tourney. Rosa immediately charges after Cargill and blasts her with a big shot. The action spills out to the floor straight out of the gate, where Cargill backs off. Rosa then exits the ring and heads out after her, stopping to take out Cargill's manager. When she turns her attention to Cargill, she is met with a big shot. Cargill then shifts the offensive momentum to her favor. Cargill continues working Rosa over on the floor. She hoists her up and is looking to connect with her finisher on the floor, however Rosa avoids it. Rosa gets on the ring apron and looks to jump and splash onto Cargill, but Cargill catches her and brings her down to the floor the hard way. We see some replays of this spot and then Rosa starts to fight back into competitive form. She is focusing her attack on the knee of her larger, stronger opponent, which the commentators point out on the broadcast. She keeps attacking the knee, using the barrack as a weapon. The commentators remind us that Cargill is still undefeated as she finally slows Rosa's momentum down and lands a big shot of her own. She sells her knee being hurt and then goes back to work on Rosa. She rings Rosa's bell by slamming her head first into the steel ring post. Cargill rolls Rosa back into the ring and slowly heads in after her, stopping briefly to sell the damage to her knee. She goes to hit a big spot on Rosa in the corner but Rosa avoids it. The two trade shots until Rosa gets Cargill's leg and dragon screws it to bring the larger woman down. Rosa hops up to the middle rope and comes off with a big shot that lands on Cargill. Cargill brushes that off and ends up connecting with a huge pump kick that decks Rosa. On that note, Excalibur talks us into a mid-match, picture-in-picture commercial break as the action in this tourney semi-final bout continues. When we return from the mid-match break, we see Rosa in the middle of a comeback. Cargill slows her down with a big backbreaker but she recovers and goes to work on the softened up leg of Cargill. She hooks her in a figure 4 but Cargill eventually makes it to the ropes to break the hold. Moments later, we see Rosa get Cargill down and looks for it again, only to get blasted by someone in a hood and mask on the floor. This leads to Cargill hitting her finisher on Rosa for the victory. The commentators quickly shift their focus on who the mystery attacker at ringside was. With the win, Cargill moves on to face Ruby Soho in the finals of the tourney to determine the first ever TBS Women's Champion on next Wednesday night's inaugural AEW Dynamite on TBS show. Winner in advancing to the finals of the TBS Women's Title Tournament, Jade Cargill. After the match, mystery attacker revealed. Once the match wraps up, we see Cargill celebrating her win when Rosa hits the ring and looks to exact some revenge. Instead, Cargill beats her down some more with the help of the mystery attacker, who returns. Once they have Rosa down and out, we see the mystery attacker reveal herself to be none other than Mercedes Martinez. They return their focus to Rosa and begin double-teaming her some more until Ruby Soho's theme hits. Soho sprints down to the ring with a lead pipe in hand, chasing off Cargill and Martinez. From there the commentators promote next week's finals of the tourney between Soho and Cargill. Once this wraps up, we head to another commercial break. A look at Britt Baker vs. Riho at AEW Battle of the Belts. As we settle back in from the break, a special vignette airs to promote the AEW Women's Championship match pitting Dr. Britt Baker one-on-one against former title holder Riho. The match is then promoted for the AEW Battle of the Belts special event scheduled for next Saturday, January 8, 2022. CM Punk makes his Jacksonville debut at Daly's Place. From there, we shoot back inside Daly's Place Amphitheater where the fans are already chanting for the best in the world. On that note, Cult of Personality plays and the crowd goes bonkers as CM Punk makes his way out and heads down to the ring. The commentators point out that this is the Jacksonville debut for Punk, who makes his first appearance on the company's home turf at Daly's Place. Punk takes in the moment, looking around at all sides of the crowd as his theme wraps up. His theme dies down and the fans break out into a loud CM Punk. CM Punk chant. He says he's never been in Daly's Place before and doesn't know how the building is set up. He asks where Jim Ross is. Once he finds out, he tells JR how good it feels to see him back at the commentary desk. He tells him he's the best to ever do it and welcomes him back. From there, he turns his focus to the late, great Mr. Brody Lee. He talks about how watching the tribute show to Brody Lee led to his own decision to return for the first time in years here in AEW. Now he gets down to business, focusing his attention on MJF. He points out that MJF doesn't have the guts to say anything to someone's face. He claims MJF prefers the anonymous security that he gets from talking big behind a keyboard, or while standing behind Wardlow and others from the Pinnacle. Punk goes on to bring up last week's AEW Trios match with himself and the duo of Sting and Darby Allin beating the Pinnacle trio of MJF and FTR. He says if MJF is scared and doesn't want none, he doesn't have to have none, after bringing up how he ran last week at the end of the match. He points out how this week he's talking about wanting to become AEW champion. The best in the world, continues, saying if MJF doesn't want to fight with him, then that's fine. He says he too wants the AEW Championship. He goes on to call MJF a waste of his time. He takes a shot at him with a Tim Tebow reference, which definitely got the crowd's attention. Punk claims MJF learned the hard way that nobody can touch him on this mic, in this ring or even on commentary. He says if MJF is truly a championship-level performer, he'll see him at some point down the line in this ring. He finishes with a twinkle in his eye by saying that it sure would be a shame if someone interfered with his quest to become a champion. His theme hits again as he continues with an ear-to-ear grin as he plays to the fans once again as he wraps up his Jacksonville debut appearance. Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs with a message for Dante Martin. Now we shoot backstage where we see FTR champion Ricky Starks, who is accompanied by fellow Team Taz member Powerhouse Hobbs. He welcomes Jim Ross back and says now he can focus on Team Taz business instead of Rampage commentary. He goes on to talk about Dante Martin, claiming he doesn't think he can win a damn thing. He points out that the last time Dante Martin stood across the ring from Hobbs, things didn't go so well for him. As he says this, we see highlights of Hobbs defeating Martin in their last match. Hobbs closes by saying Martin doesn't want none. Hikaru Shida with a message for Serena Deeb. We return to a vignette hyping the ongoing rivalry between Serena Deeb and Hikaru Shida. The vignette features highlights from their most recent match, while Shida sends her a message in a talking head segment. Shida tells Deeb to quit complaining about how the match ended and just ask for a rematch, because she's happy to beat her again. That's how this vignette wraps up, and then we return live on New Year's Smash inside Daly's place. Brian Pillman Jr. addresses Malachi Black. Tony Schiavone is shown standing in the ring as he introduces his guest at this time, who is already in the ring standing beside him, Brian Pillman Jr. Pillman Jr. takes the mic from Schiavone and brings up how his fellow Varsity Blondes tag team partner Griff Garrison was in the House of Black last week. He tells what he remembers about the showdown against Malachi Black, pointing out that at a certain point things get fuzzy because he was hit with a cheap shot. He goes on to tell Malachi congratulations on hitting him with a cheap shot. He gets amped up as he brings up being in Jacksonville again. He says it's his turn to take a trip into the House of Black. He says he's not gonna do so by doing what Malachi wants. The Varsity Blondes member goes on to point out that if he learned one thing from his father, Brian Pillman, is you only get one life. He says next week he's gonna introduce Malachi to the real Brian Pillman Jr. Before he can say anything else, the lights in Daly's place go out. When they come back on, it appears that Malachi Black is standing in the entrance tunnel. The lights then go out again, and when they come back on, no one is there anymore. That's how this segment ends. Anthony Bowens challenges Darby Allin, match set for Rampage, New Year's Smash. We shoot to a message from the Acclaimed. Anthony Bowens and Max Caster talk about Sting and Darby Allin. Bowens goes on to challenge Darby Allin to a one-on-one showdown on this Friday's special New Year's Smash edition of AEW Rampage. From there, we shoot to a response from Sting and Darby Allin. They address Bowens' comments, and then Darby goes on to accept the match challenge for Friday's show. Technique by Taz. Hooks redrum. A graphic flashes across the screen promoting a Technique by Taz segment for Rampage, New Year's Smash this Friday night. They mention that Taz will be breaking down the redrum finisher used by his son and fellow Team Taz member, Hook. Penelope Ford and the Bunny with a message for Tay Conti and Anna Jay. Now we head to a vignette-style message from the team of Penelope Ford and the Bunny. The duo direct their message to their opponents in a street fight tag team match that was just announced against the team of Tay Conti and Anna Jay. After addressing their in-ring interaction with the two on various shows the past couple of weeks, they close by calling themselves the most psychotic bitches in town and teasing that they could bring any kind of toys with them for the street fight. We head to a commercial break after this. AEW Trios main event: Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish vs Orange Cassidy and Best Friends. We return from the commercial break to the familiar sounds of Adam Cole's theme song. Out he comes as the fans do the booms, along with the tune, and Cole makes his way to the ring along with his tag team partners for this AEW Trios main event, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. Once they make it to the ring, the fans do the loud boom. Adam Cole baby, routine with him, as O'Reilly and Fish do a little pose on each side of Cole in the ring. Cole's catchy tune then wraps up. The theme for Orange Cassidy hits, and out he comes accompanied by Best Friends duo Chuck Taylor and Trent. The trio make their way down and settle inside the squared circle. It's main event time here on the final Dynamite show on TNT. The bell sounds and we're off and running with this one. We see O'Reilly and Chuck Taylor kicking things off for their respective teams. Early on, It looks like Chuck is gonna have a hard time with O'Reilly, but Cole tags in and he ends up getting in a couple of shots. This leads to O'Reilly tagging back in. Trent tags in for his team. They go at it a bit and then Fish tags in for his team. As Fish settles in the ring, we see Cassidy tag in for his. He takes off his arm pad and throws it at him, showing an uncharacteristic emotional side, which the commentators point out. He then goes right into his hands up and back down into his jeans pocket routine. This leads to him taking a big shot from the heel trio, who transitions into the offensive control. Cassidy ends up fighting back and making the tag. He, Trent and Chuck take turns running and splashing onto Cole in the corner. He then sends Cole out of the corner directly into a double shoulder tackle from Trent and Chuck. Now we see Fish and O'Reilly hit the ring, however Best Friends immediately beats them down and sends them out to the floor. They stretch their arms out and tease giving the people what they want, but their Best Friends hug spot ends up broken up by Cole and O'Reilly. We see a dragon screw in the ropes by O'Reilly to Chuck. Fish then sweeps his legs out from under him, which leads to him crashing and burning on the floor at ringside. We see Cole gloating in the ring as Excalibur talks us into a mid-match, picture-in-picture commercial break as the main event of the evening continues. When we return from the break, we see Cole transition to the offensive lead, shifting the momentum in the match to his team's favor. Once in control of the action, Cole blindsides Cassidy on the ring apron with a cheap shot super kick that turns his lights out. Meanwhile, all hell breaks loose in the ring with everyone running in and interfering. As the smoke clears, we see Trent hit a big suplex and then he gets O'Reilly in the corner. He runs and blasts him with a back elbow and then follows up with a thunderous DDT for a close near fall. O'Reilly recovers and lands a shot that slows Trent down. Cole sneaks in a follow-up cheap shot through the ropes from the floor. This leads to O'Reilly tagging Fish in and the two hitting back-to-back spots on Trent in the corner and then a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker into a top rope knee drop for another close near fall. We hear the fans break out into a loud, "This is awesome," chant. Cassidy then tags in and fires up. He takes out O'Reilly and then runs and dives through the ropes for a splash onto Fish on the floor. Back in the ring, Cole hits a big spot on Cassidy. Fish and O'Reilly then hit a crazy double team spot for another close near fall. The commentary team keeps referring to the duo by their old Redragon team name. The two remain in control of the action, hitting a double team high-low spot on Cassidy. Chuck hits the ring to break up the pinfall attempt that followed. Fish looks for a big suplex on Trent from the entrance ramp outside the ring, however he ends up doing a front suplex with Trent being slammed gut first on the top rope. Cole sees that Chuck Taylor is in position for a Panama Sunrise on the entrance ramp, however when he goes for it, Chuck avoids it and counters. Back in the ring, we see some big spots followed by Cassidy connecting with a diving DDT off the ropes for a near fall on Cole. Now we see Chuck Taylor hit a stuffed pile driver on Cole. This goes directly into Trent hitting a stuffed pile driver on Cole and then Cassidy follows that up with his beach break finisher for a close near fall that Fish and O'Reilly end up breaking up just in time. Cassidy connects with a super kick. After that, Trent and Chuck hit a soul food half and half combo on Fish and then they got to give the people what they want and they do, as they execute a best friends hug in the middle of the ring. From there, we see Brandon Cutler running to the ring spraying an aerosol can, but he is met by a big shot from the best friends. The Young Bucks end up hitting the ring and blasting Trent and Chuck with a pair of stereo super kicks. This sets up O'Reilly and Fish to land their double team finisher on Chuck for the pinfall victory. Winners, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. After the match, Trouble in Paradise with Adam Cole and Red Dragon. Once the match wraps up, we see the Young Bucks turn their attention to Adam Cole, who as the commentators point out, is still down and out on the floor at ringside. Fish and O'Reilly celebrate their victory without paying Cole any attention. The Young Bucks and Cole look at them and Cole doesn't seem thrilled with this. The Young Bucks help Cole up and the trio ends up heading to the back, stopping to point at Fish and O'Reilly still in the ring. Both sides talk back and forth off mic as the commentators wrap up the final Dynamite show on TNT, as tonight's New Year's Smash special event wraps up. That's how this week's show goes off the air. Thanks for joining us.